Welcome to LinkedIn Live. I'm Christy Connor, the host this evening. I am the author of The Confident Connector, How to Build Your Must-Have Professional Network in an Era of Job Insecurity. I'm so pleased to have Dave Weir here with us this evening. He is a job search coach and job performance mentor, and he's going to be speaking with us today about finding a job during COVID. He has helped hundreds of people, including my own friends and colleagues, find a job quickly and then maximize their performance once they land that job. He is going to give an overview of the job market and how to maximize and focus your time during your own job search. Following our presentation today, he will be doing a Q&A, so go ahead and put your questions and answers into the chat panel and I will moderate those. And with that, welcome, Dave. We're so pleased to have you here with us this evening.
Well, thanks, Christy, and hi, everybody. Just thrilled to be here, and just hope that some of what I share tonight is helpful, particularly if you're going through a job search or you're considering one. What I've been job search coaching now about 10 years after putting about 25 plus years into the IT business. And my average client, just to set the context for you, is anywhere between about 35 and 55. They're typically looking for a job because they lost their job due to a reduction in force or a merger or an acquisition, or they may be that they're interested in a career transition into something new and refreshing and different for them. So that's a little bit about my typical client. They come from a wide range of industries and a variety of different levels, from manager to CEO, and I work with those folks typically every day. So what I thought I'd do is just set kind of the tone for what I'm seeing today, and then leave you with 2 or 3 tidbits of things that really seem to be working well right now during COVID and the pandemic for finding your next new job faster. Certainly, job search is difficult and it's frustrating and it's time consuming, and that was all before COVID. Now with the pandemic, things have certainly got more crowded out there and a little more difficult. But that said, things are really kind of looking up right now from the hiring standpoint. So just as it says on this slide, you know, back in Q1 of 2020, we certainly all saw that business began to see the impact from COVID. And by Q2, we were seeing dramatic negative revenue impact, and that of course led to the need for expense reductions, and that resulted in large-scale reductions in staff. By Q3, businesses, really realized we got to survive, and to do that, we've got to define new business models to help us do that and do more with less. And by Q4, those new business models were being implemented across industries, and the promise of a vaccine really gave some hope to the 2021 planning and budget process. So where we're at today, end of January 2021, what I'm seeing from a job market standpoint, working with my clients, is that vaccines are really beginning to open the hiring gates. That really was a gating factor to companies being able to hire more quantity for 2021. The job market is improving, and despite what you may consume on the nightly network news, there's a lot of good jobs available today at all levels of organizations. I have clients getting hired every week across industries, including nonprofits, which is really interesting given the economy and the state of things. Things are very competitive, so what it really calls for in your job search is to really find a way to stand out from the pack and differentiate yourself. So let's talk about where most people go first. Most people in a job search go to job boards and they focus there. You can't ignore job boards, but they really are a low percentage play. And here's some reasons why. 70% of job openings are never listed. And then there's these things called applicant tracking systems, and most medium-sized companies on up use them, and they will filter your resume as you apply, looking for keywords in your resume against the stated job description. And it really reduces the chance of your resume being seen by human eyes. If you make it through the applicant tracking system, now you're in the hands of human resources, and they have to sift through what maybe 2 years ago was 200 or 300 resumes they would get in response to a job posting. Today, that number is more like 500 to 600. And not to discount or discredit human resources in any way, but the only person who really knows the hiring criteria best, really knows what they're looking for, is the hiring manager. And yet it's human resources who is weeding through the pile of resumes and deciding who we're going to bring in for an interview. So the bottom line is that the job board process is somewhat flawed. And I tell my clients, don't devote more than 20% of your job search hours here because of that. You can't ignore the job boards. Good jobs do get posted there, but don't be one of these people who spends a 40-hour job search week applying online, and that's all you're doing, and hoping that the phone will ring. Okay, I want to talk about 3 best avenues today for job searching that are working for my clients. The first one really isn't news, but a lot of people who maybe haven't looked for a job in some time don't understand this. Nearly 80% of new jobs come through the people you know and the people they know. So the first step in a job search, most people would say it's updating your resume. It's really not. The first job is updating and refreshing your personal network, particularly people that maybe you haven't talked to in a while, but they could be strategic and be leveraged in the course of you finding a new job. So tell everyone you know that you're looking for a job. Tell your doctor, tell your dentist, tell your golf buddies, tell people at church, tell your neighbors, tell everybody that you're looking for a job. The reason is you don't know who they know. Make that group of people you tell as broad as you can, because that will give you significant cross-industry exposure. You want to leverage your old contacts by refreshing them. That's really a 2-step process. You don't have the right to talk to somebody and call them who could be really influential in your job search, but yet you haven't spoken to them for 3 years. So the first step is you write them an email and say, hey, John, I was thinking about you the other day. Hope things are really well. Let's catch up, and you leave your contact information. After that phone call, then you tell them you're looking, because then you have the right to. So that's how you leverage your older contacts. The ones you speak to very frequently, that's probably not news that you're looking anyway. They just need to be armed with what are you specifically looking for. And when you tell people what you're looking for in your job search, don't tell them in terms of a job title. Tell them you're looking for a position that really leverages your core skills in, and name 3 or 4. It could be sales, it could be productivity improvement, it could be cost reduction, it could be project management, whatever it is. I had a client just 3 months ago who was a vice president of operations, and he lost his job due to an acquisition. And we had him tell everybody he knew, but we didn't have him tell everybody he knew that he was looking for a VP of operations role. We told them he was looking for a role that would leverage his core skills, which for him were team building, productivity improvement, cost reduction, and strategy. And he ended up getting referred to a job as a vice president of strategy for a large retail chain. Probably wouldn't have gotten that referral had he told them he was looking for a vice president of operations role. So tell them in terms of your core skills and tell everybody you know. The next best avenue is to go directly to the hiring manager. If you find a job on a job board, apply to it as instructed, but then figure out who the hiring manager is. 99 times out of 100, through the use of LinkedIn or the company's website or Google, you can figure out who the actual hiring manager is for the job. It may even say that in the job posting. It may say, reporting to the vice president of Western sales, the account manager has responsibility for, and now you know who that person is. And you look them up on LinkedIn. And then what you do is carefully dissect that job description. Spend a lot of time on this. Get your trusty highlighter out and highlight all the keywords of what they're looking for. And then once you've done that, take a step back and look at what the top 3 things are, because you really want to emphasize those. When you put your resume together, you ought to be able to put a check mark through every keyword you highlighted, because in one way or another, through customizing your resume, you addressed it. So you're really knitting a glove that's going to fit really well on the hand that they describe. Do the same for a cover letter. And this is where you take the top 3 things that they're looking for and write a paragraph on each thing as to where you've done it and how you've done it in previous jobs in your experience. So highly customize a cover letter. And yes, they're still important. And yes, they still get read. Don't forget to do a cover letter. Again, use the company website, use LinkedIn, use Google to figure out their email. And if you can't find the hiring manager's email, I use a site called Hunter.io, and that will give you the nomenclature for most large organizations and most medium to large organizations around the globe. Email your materials to the hiring manager, and then do the last thing that most people forget to do, and that's follow up by phone. Put a phone call in and follow up on your resume, make sure they got it, and try to get time with the hiring manager. That's what works the best. If you can't get the hiring manager on the phone, a little pro tip is to leave him a scripted message after hours. You can get to his voicemail typically, and that'll give you the ability to leave him a message about your background and the resume that you sent that person. Okay, the third thing is approach targeted companies. Make a list of 20 companies that you'd strongly consider working for. Use their websites and LinkedIn to find out who runs what you would probably report into. And here's the key, and this work has been working really well in COVID times for my clients. Email them not asking for an interview and not even expressing interest in a job, but email them asking for 15 minutes by phone. And what you want to do is say that you'd like to garner their advice on the 2 or 3 biggest trends and challenges they see in their business over the next 3 years. You'll get known by them, and they'll consider you for openings that they have or may have in the future. And again, you don't know who they know. So they may have contacts in other organizations that may have a need for somebody like you. This has been proving to be a really interesting way for people to kind of get in the side door in organizations to hiring managers and have really meaningful discussions with them. Don't send them a resume when you're asking for their time. Send it afterwards with the thank you note and thank them for their time and tell them you've taken the liberty of attaching a resume for them should they see an opening either in their organization or elsewhere through a contact. Last slide, because Christy told me to keep this fairly short. I've got a guide. It's about 10 pages, covers most of everything I covered today and more. It's called The 9 Secrets to Finding a New Job Faster. If you'd like
Dave?
to get a copy of that, yeah.
Really quick, the slides, you were doing great. I just want to make sure the slide didn't share, but if you want to share this last slide, you were going. So I just let you go, and it's been great. Can you go ahead and share that last slide? Because I think you have some information on it, and then you can talk about the 10-page.
Trying.
No worries. And if not, just talk about it. It's been great. You can just talk about it.
Okay, so I've got a guide. It's called 9 Secrets to Finding a New Job Faster. And it covers everything that I talked about today and more. And if you'd like to get a copy of that, just shoot me an email. My email address is dave.weir, W-E-I-R, the number 1, at Gmail. Dave.weir, the number 1, at Gmail. And I guess I'll turn it over to you, Christy.
Oh, sorry, I was talking there on mute. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so I posted Dave's email address into the chat window in the LinkedIn Live, so that is there. Please go ahead and put your own questions into LinkedIn Live as well, and I will read those out. Dave, as you've worked with so many people, what have you found to be the biggest stumbling block for people who are just starting out a job search?
I think, and let me make sure you can hear me okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I think what most people fail to do, particularly if they haven't looked for a job in a while, is to really highly customize their resume. They'll send out 50 to 100 resumes a week and not hear back from anybody and wonder why. It would be much better for you to send out 5 resumes a week or 7 resumes a week that you spent just a ton of time really customizing the resume and the cover letter to the job description and what they're looking for.
Great. And there was a question, what was the name of the document again that you mentioned, just so they can be sure and put it in their email?
Yeah, it's called 9 Secrets to Finding a New Job Faster.
9 Secrets to Finding a New Job Faster. So go ahead and send Dave an email, and I have put his email address in the chat window. Dave, you're getting a lot of fans saying how much you help them get their jobs and that you help them get their dream job in the chat. So thank you for that. Thank you for the work that you've done in the community. Dave has really given across many communities, helping people to get new jobs, help them with their livelihoods. So we are grateful for that. Let's see. You mentioned about networking, and I love networking. It's one of the things that is so important to me. For people just starting out with networking, from your perspective, what's the biggest challenge you see there, and how do they get around that? Or how do you coach them to get around that?
Get around.
Starting to network. You talked a little bit in your process about networking, reaching out first, establishing that relationship, that you don't have the right to do something yet. Any other tips like that to help people through their process?
Yeah, I think you have to be strategic about networking. It's one thing to say, I'm going to try and get 100 contacts in my network to help me with my job search. It's another thing to say, who could really help me in my job search based on the company they work in, where they live, how high up they are in the company, how many people they have in their own personal network. And so I would approach them based on more of a giving attitude than a taking attitude at first. Try to define something and by doing a little research on them and the organization they're with as to how you might be able to help them first. And that could be something as simple as, I found this article about your company the other day and the things they're doing in this sector, found it really interesting, thought you might find it interesting as well. It's an entree into the connection, but it's with a helpful attitude as opposed to, I'm just here to take and have you help me.
Perfect. We have a recent college graduate on the line. They said, do you have any advice for people graduating during this time?
Yeah, this is, it's a difficult time, admittedly, for people coming out of college without a lot of experience. But what I think you need to do is really do your homework on the organization and the things that are affecting them from a market standpoint, a competitive standpoint, a customer standpoint, and try to bring to bear the cross-functional skills that you have from whatever courses or maybe even extracurricular experiences that you had or internships that you had during college. The more you can craft your resume around the things that they're dealing with and identify with them, the better of a chance you're going to have. This is all about standing out from the pack and really differentiating yourself.
Cameron mentioned how much you helped him during his negotiation period. Do you have any tips for negotiating?
Yeah. Human resources typically handles negotiation for the hiring manager, not always, but typically. And they like to do it by email. In other words, they'll send you an offer letter. And one thing to realize about the offer letter is the hiring manager sat down with human resources and didn't say, how much money can we throw at this person? They said, what can we get them for? So 9 times out of 10, there's more money to be had than is expressed in the offer letter. And what you want to do is you want to write human resources back and say, I'm joining. Thank you so much for your offer. I'm thrilled. There's just a couple of things. If we can get over or around, then I'm joining as soon as you want me there. One of them is that salary offer. How do we get that number to X? And I usually define X as 15 to 20% more than they offered, because one of two things will typically happen. You have to realize when you have a job offer, you're now holding the power stick, I call it. They've went through a interview process and selected you amongst all the candidates for the job. They don't want to have to go back and do this again. They want to get you on board and get on with it. You asking for another 15%, maybe even 20%, is not going to kill the deal. My clients go, well, what if the offer goes away? The offer's not going to go away because they want you. They've decided on that. Now it's just a matter, how do we get you on board and how quickly and get on with business?
Angela's asking about recruiting services. They've been contacted by some staffing services, but the positions aren't really in their field. What advice do you have around staffing or recruiting services?
Yeah, well, most people are wrestling with how do they leverage recruiters as part of their job search strategically. And the way to do it is to, again, take a helpful attitude. Most people just send their resume to a recruiter, letting them know they're looking and what they're looking for, and then they're surprised when they never hear back. The recruiter only has a need for you if he has a specific assignment for which you're a fit. What you want to do is identify the recruiters, and this is very easy to do online, and this is where LinkedIn is another great tool. Identify recruiters who are conducting searches in your niche, in your market space, and then become a base of knowledge for them. Begin to send them articles and reports and other things that are about that particular market, niche, or industry that makes them more knowledgeable. And what that does is it makes you a recognized expert. So when an opening comes in that niche, they're going to come to you because you've obviously demonstrated to them that you know this space cold, you follow it like crazy, and you're a recognized expert in it.
Great. And do you have any recommendations for somebody who wants to kind of spread the word in the business community that they're looking, but keeping their employer from finding out?
Yeah, be careful. I have a mantra in business, and it's called, there's no such thing as a secret. And there really isn't. So when you're telling people that you're looking, you really want to stress the confidence. You got to let them know that you're looking in confidence. Be careful about letting internal people where you're currently employed know. I would go first to people external to your organization and people in your personal network. I would leverage only key people that you've just got an extremely good relationship of confidence with internally, and make them know that this is not to be known.
Perfect. What is your advice for people as they go through the job search? We know that it's incredibly stressful and emotional. Do you have any tips for them as they're navigating that process, things that you do to encourage your own clients?
Yeah. A couple of things I tell my clients. They want the phone to ring, and they want to get emails to set up interviews. But if you look at that, it can be up and down. It can be very frustrating. You can have a great week followed by a bad week. So instead of focusing on the end result, focus on the process. What do I have to get done this week in terms of resume writing, approaching people in my network, approaching people in targeted companies that I consider working for, and keep the metrics on that. Focus on the process, and the end result will come. The other thing that's really important to manage the frustration is you got to take care of yourself during a job search. It's frustrating, takes a big toll. There's a lot of pressure, particularly if you're supporting a family. So make sure that you schedule some time away from it on a regular basis. And in that time, do whatever brings you joy. That might be going to a movie, well, maybe before COVID, watching a movie, reading a book, hiking, taking a run, going and playing around a golf, whatever brings you joy, do that. And make sure you schedule time every week, not as a reward, but it's scheduled in your calendar that you're going to take care of yourself for these number of hours once a week.
Okay. In your experience for executives, I often talk to people about, it can take a year or two for an executive to find their next role. Are you seeing different time frames within COVID? Are things lasting longer? Are you seeing a transition in how times have looked in the last 6 to 8 months, but now we're going to see something else? Any inputs on that?
In terms of job search, I never adhered to any of the formulas you used to hear that, for every $10,000 in base salary, it's going to take you a month to find a job, or whatever, you hear. Because it's more about how effective are you being in working the process of job search and approaching the people in your network, approaching hiring managers, and really highly customizing your materials to the job description. And I've seen executives that, I've worked with, and I really thought it was going to take us 8-9 months to find a job, and we found it for them in 8 weeks. So it really just depends on what the market is like, what you want to accomplish, but more importantly, how effectively are you working the process?
As a coach, I'm sure you have all types of clients. What do you find most challenging or frustrating for you as a coach in working with somebody? Maybe behaviors that you see that are really limiting them from finding their search. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, probably the biggest thing I see is lack of preparation in interviewing. And I mean right from the start, where you may get a call from an internal recruiter or a human resources manager who's doing some screening on the resumes they got, and they want, 15, 20 minutes on the phone with you to see if they should put you in front of the hiring manager, all the way to, interviewing with the CEO and the board of directors. It takes an immense amount of preparation, and I tell my clients, don't go interview until we've had an opportunity to hold a preparation session, and we always do. So do your homework on the company, and spend a bunch of time. Almost every company has I call it a press room, and it's a place where you can find announcements, blogs, press releases, financial statements. Do your homework on the company, then do your homework on the hiring manager or the person you're going to interview with. Knowing their background is going to give you an eye into the angle from which the questions you're going to get are going to come from. All the way to the last interview, where you really want to begin thinking about putting a plan together that you put in front of them that says, here's what I would do in the first year on board if I had this job. And it really helps you stand out. But again, takes a bunch of preparation. So that's probably the biggest stumbling block I see, is people go into interviewing cold without the proper preparation.
Oh goodness, and you're right, it does take so much work going through this process. Can you tell us a little bit about your services? People are saying great things online. Can you talk just a little bit about the types of services you offer, if there's like a package or course, things like that you want to talk about?
Yeah, well, there's a number of services I provide, and then there's kind of like the whole enchilada package. But my approach to job search coaching is to first take a step back before we take a step forward. I've got some formal diagnostics that I run that really help us define what your core gifts are. And core gifts are those things that have two angles to them. One is you really enjoy doing something and you excel at it. So for me, something that is not a core gift is math. I'm really good at math, but I hate it. So I was never going to be a CPA. I was never going to be an accounting manager. Something that is a core gift is building relationships. I do it easily. I don't even think about what I'm doing when I'm doing it. And I can walk into a gathering of 50 people and come out 2 hours later with 5 friends I didn't have when I went in. These core gifts, they're important because, number one, they're pillars to your personal brand. And that's the next step of what I do, is I build a vibrant and compelling and differentiating personal brand for you. And we market that in everything we do. At the top of your resume, at the top of your LinkedIn page, and any association directories that you have. And then from there, we focus a lot on a resume that answers the question that most hiring managers and recruiters have. And that is, if I hire this person, who do I get? They can see where you worked. They can see how long you were there and the title you had and, all the bullets that say what you did. But what they really want is, who do I get if I hire this person? What's the complexion of this person? And those core gifts tell them, and you need to tell them so that you're not leaving the connecting of the dots of who you are to the hiring manager.
Fantastic. And they can just reach out to you via their LinkedIn if they're interested in engaging with you, as well as for that document.
Yeah.
And you also
LinkedIn
have a website.
Or my email. Yep. And my website is Leadership Optimized, all one word, leadershipoptimized.com.
Great. And just one more question before we wrap up. For somebody looking for a new role in a different state or country, any recommendations to them?
Yeah, it doesn't really differ in that you've got to answer the question of, how am I going to get there? Do I expect it to be my move to be on your nickel, or am I looking for a job in the UK because my wife and I have already committed to moving there, and I'm just looking for the employment that I'm going to want once I get there? That has to be kind of cleared up first and foremost, really right in the top paragraph of a cover letter. It's that important. You have to tell them why should they even consider an employee or a possible hire of somebody who is currently not in their country. So you got to lay out how you're going to get there and when, and then the rest of it is the exact same thing of customizing your materials highly to what they're looking for.
Thank you, Dave. We really appreciate your time tonight and being with us and sharing with this broad community on LinkedIn. Is there anything that you want to leave us with before we wrap up? Does this bring up anything else for you that you'd like to share?
Well, I just want to communicate some encouragement to people that are in job search mode now and without a job. I feel for you. I got a number of clients that are right where you are. There's an awful lot of people out there that are right where you are. But with this first month of this fiscal year, this calendar year already, we're seeing improvement, dramatic improvement in the number of jobs that are available at all levels. And it's just a matter of working the process effectively and standing out from the crowd. That's the biggest thing you have to do, is stand out from the large numbers of people that are applying. And the way you do that is don't use the job boards, go to the hiring manager.
Perfect. Thank you for leaving us with that note of encouragement. Thank you to everybody who's joined us tonight on LinkedIn Live. We really appreciate you being here. And